Hello and welcome to Let's Talk. We're here in Chelsea, which is a very upmarket area of London, to see Simon Murray, who for many years was a leading figure in the Hong Kong business world and has a lot of very interesting things to say. Have a listen.
Wrong number.
Right, let's try again, okay?
Hello, Steve. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Welcome. Okay. That's my wife's studio.
All right.
This is Jimmy.
Really?
Our mate Jimmy.
Goodness.
And where did I get that? He gave it to me. He came to our place in Somerset. That was a very early Jimmy, before he started to sharpen it up. He carried on making them, but much, much sharper. That's an early one. Because it was light, he started making. And now he's copied.
So you work for Jardine Matheson. My understanding is you left to form your own company.
After 14 years, I left Jardine Matheson, yeah.
And you formed your
I
own...
had my own company, Davenham Investments, and that was like an investment company. And then suddenly, out of the blue, I got a call from a man called Philip Toes, who's an investment banker. I used to do a lot of work with Li Ka-shing. I knew Li Ka-shing because I'd been selling building materials and so on and so on. But I didn't know him well. Anyway, he said, Murray, do you know anybody who could run Hutchison? Because the three guys who were there have been trying to sell the business to an American investment. It was a public company. And I said, yes, me, jokingly. And he said, and Li Ka-shing wants to see you this afternoon. 6 o'clock. So I went over for a drink and saw the old man. And he said, Simon, I'd like to buy your company. You come work for me. So I sold the company to Li Ka-shing and became the CEO of Hutchison after 14 years with Jardines, during which I ran their engineering business and other things.
So, I mean, what was he like in those days?
Well, he was relatively, although he was known, relatively unknown, and I'd only seen him to discuss business, prices and so on, and you can do this, that, and the other. But he was very open. He had considering who he was and was going to be, he was very, he was charming, he was polite, he had he wasn't the big fat man on the throne. He was a good guy. K.S. and I started to get on very well. One of the things he said to me, Simon, we do something when we both agree. But other times there was you had to understand the character. He's born in China and so on. I was very fond of him. He was very kind to me and of course paid me well. But he said to me one day, Simon, you got a friend, very bad man. And I said, he's a good man. He said, Simon, everybody doesn't like him. I said, well, he's fine with me. I get on very well. And yes, I choose my own friends. I make friends by choice, not by chance. So I went out, and he called in his 2 sons and Caddick-Fogg, his accountant, and George Madness, and said, Simon Murray, very good man, choose his own friends. And there was something strange.
Well,
that was the cultural thing. We had to get through that as well.
The sons must have been quite young at that stage in the proceedings, I assume.
Yeah. Yes.
You're working in a company like all Chinese companies that work on the dynastic principle with the sons. It's never the daughters.
Well, so do the British companies as well.
Well, in Hong Kong, but not in the world, I would say.
No, maybe not. Well, you want to have a look around sometime.
Well, it's a fair point. Let's just say more in Hong Kong. And I'm just wondering, do you think that holds back business? The absolute application
well,
of
course
that
it does.
principle?
And of course it does. And it leads to catastrophic results. Well, look at the Murdoch right now with his children. Who's going to run it? They're all knocking hell out of each other. See that good television program called Succession. And it's very real. But that's when you build up a thing in your lifetime, you want to pass it to your kids or to your child. It's pretty natural. Talk to Buckingham Palace sometime.
But it must have been difficult for you. I mean, you were, I think, without exaggeration, possible to say, built up Hutchison to what it became.
Well,
and you knew that you would never control it.
Well, I don't think control was the search that I was following at that time. I mean, I was the managing director. I ran the company, and we all got on very well. As the sons of KS got older, so they, became more involved. And sometimes I said to KS one day, why don't you, KS Lee, why don't you send your youngest son Richard over to me and we can teach him how the business runs, knowing he's going to eventually take over. That's okay with me. Anyway, he came over and I said, right, every morning, 9 o'clock, we start the day and I'll tell you what I'm doing. We'll go from there. So the next morning, he didn't show up. And he didn't show up for a week. I went to hell with it. So anyway, we got him involved in television. And he liked that. And he went off and ran the television business.
But that wasn't really a happy relationship, was it?
Well, it was tolerant. And I think Victor, the older son, I didn't see very much of him. And there was another guy called George Magnus, who was KS's deputy chairman. And I did have a pretty sour relationship with Magnus, which is in my book. So 10 years, probably time to move on. And I went, and the KS didn't want me to go. It's absolutely, Simon, you can't leave, and so on and so forth. It was very, but I think the boys were, and Magnus probably thought he was going to get my job, but he didn't. So he was still deputy chairman. Although I'd left, I was still, he wanted me to stay on the board of Chung Kong. So I stayed on the board of Chung Kong, and one day they were having a Christmas relationship or something. And shortly after I'd left, and he came up and said, Simon, I want to invest in your new business. Give me 10 million. Not bad. That's classic KS Lee. Great man.
Who would be your ideal golf partner? The first golf partner is Li Ka-shing. The second golf partner is Donald Tsang.
Donald who?
Donald Tsang.
Who's Donald Tsang? Donald Trump.
No,
Donald Tsang. Sorry, Donald Tsang. You mean the ex-governor?
Well, chief executive.
The chief executive. Ah, he's a very, very good friend of mine. So I'd play golf with him.
Not Li Ka-shing.
No, because the problem playing golf with Li Ka-shing, he asked me once to play golf with him. I might win, and that would be a disaster.
Well, my answer is Li Ka-shing, so I can give him some investment advice.
Where do you want to go clubbing? Central in Hong Kong
or Tokyo?
Or Tokyo in Japan?
Central.
I think I'll go to Tokyo.
I like to go where I know where I'm going. Like South Pole.
Where?
Oh, I don't know. Lockhart Road or something.
What was that place in the basement of Hutchison House?
Oh, we did. We had a bar down there.
Yeah, you did indeed.
Closed it down.
What was that? It was a very... I went there quite a number of times.
Yes. The trouble is, I used to go in there when half the staff were down there. At 4 o'clock in the morning. Peter Wrangham, Hong Kong Bank, number 2. Yeah, this is an article on the community chest. So most companies big companies in Hong Kong, we used to contribute to the community chest. So that's myself and K.S. Lee, and that's the deputy chairman of the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, Peter Wrangham. And we're giving him, it looks like 2 fat checks. It sounds like too many. Memories are made of this. Take one fresh and tender kiss, add one stolen night of bliss. One man, one boy, one grief, some joy. Memories are made of this.
You know, because you've had all this experience of running companies in Hong Kong, being a key part of the business scene, I just wonder now how you reflect on the dynamics of how business in Hong Kong is conducted.
Well, I'm not deeply into it at the moment. I'm still on the board of 2 or 3 companies in Hong Kong, and I don't live in Hong Kong anymore. I sold my house, but I go there every year and so on. I think it is still got dynamics of the old days, people doing their own thing and so on and so forth. I think there's a sort of nervousness about what happens next. Well, clearly, you know, you've been with the Brits and run British law, British governors, appointed, not elected, since 1841 or whenever it was. I think Chris Patten, did everything he could to leave a proper arrangement.
And you were one of the few leading business people who was supportive.
Well, the business people started by saying, we don't want a Foreign Office guy as the governor. We want a businessman who can negotiate. Patten starts to negotiate. China gets angry. The businessmen see that China's angry, go running around the back to make friends with China, and not us, it's Chris Patten. You know, he's the guy, he's the bad guy here. And actually he was doing a lot of good, and he worked like hell over the years. But he was also fractured by the Foreign Office, the British Foreign Office, who were sucking to China every day. You know, we can't upset China. And Patten, you're doing the wrong thing. So they were going behind his back, stabbing in the back. So anyway, we got what we got. And, you know, the country will stay the same until whatever it was, 50 years later. And then wham, in came this new law proposed by Carrie Lam. So that scared people a bit, although there's nothing wrong with an extradition law. England has an extradition law with all sorts of people, like the Americans and so on. If somebody had done an American does a crime here, they want to extradite him. That's pretty normal.
The question is the nature of the judiciary.
And if it's not a crime in London, and it happens to be a crime in some colony of ours, there's a lot of problems and people get frightened. But the idea of this law, this new law that came in under Carrie Lam, she went to China. She suggested it as an extradition law. But it was Carrie Lam. The Chinese thought it was a great idea, but it was Carrie Lam who suggested it. I got that from another chief executive of Hong Kong. And he was right there as chief executive. And he told me that story about Carrie Lam. So,
but
wasn't
at
the Chinese.
Time, but at the time, what did you think of that?
Well, it was handled in quite a bad way.
When the protest started, I mean, that was, I know it started with the extradition movement, but it morphed into a more general protest against the lack of democracy.
Well, when it was described as extradition, it sounded okay. Then when they started to arrest people, Hong Kong government, people like Jimmy Lai, very good friend of mine, and he's in there for 5 years, then another 10, and he's now going in for life. Same with the Russians, that guy who was opposing Putin, who was in Germany, came back from Germany. Navalny. He's in there for 5, and now he's going in for life, etc.
Well, he was killed,
of course. Right? Yes, he did. So that's terrifying, and that is what is rumbling through Hong Kong at the moment. When it first was pronounced as an extradition agreement, it sounded, reasonable.
It didn't ring any warning bells with you?
No, it didn't. It did pretty soon afterwards, yeah. It's because they picked up Jimmy Lai. I knew Jimmy Lai, I used to work with him when he had his garment factory.
And now, of course, we have the national security law, which is far more...
That's the one I'm talking about.
That's far more draconian.
Yeah, of course it is. And you've got a man in China who doesn't stand for any nonsense. Because the Chinese on every day, one of the things they're worried about is revolution. From China, Deng Xiaoping gave power to the regions, Deng Xiaoping. And now they're worried that those regions are going to starting to be independent.
7, so it would have to be...
Scotsman. I was always very well received in China, even when I started to say things. I used to say things that I believed, and some things were negative. I remember one of those Chinese, I think it was Deng, saying one of the problems with China is the corruption. And about a week later, I was talking to somebody, a journalist or something, and I said, well, they have a lot of trouble with corruption in China. KS calling, Simon, how you know they have corruption in China? No corruption. And I said, well, I got it from Deng Xiaoping. Who?
Just coming back to Hong Kong, I mean, if you know how Hong Kong works, there's the dynamism of entrepreneurship, but then there's the other things. There's the rule of law. You can sign a contract in Hong Kong, it goes to a court, and you can be fairly sure of impartial jurisdiction. There was freedom of communication, certainly freedom of movement. If those props which hold up Hong Kong as an international business centre are removed, where does that leave Hong Kong?
Well, I think, of course, if they don't hold up and you've got everybody being extradited and all the worst things happen, we've seen a few cases. I think the economics of Hong Kong will be good. Shenzhen was miles behind Hong Kong. Look at it now, 10 times bigger. Hong Kong has an enormous annual budget. It is a rich country as such, if it's a country. The area that we talk about, the Greater Bay Area, is 79 million people. We are already doing business with Shenzhen, building businesses with Shenzhen to feed the Greater Bay Area and indeed feed Chinese. We've got to get ourselves a little bit more than being a trading outfit.
Does Hong Kong have distinctiveness within that area?
I think today they do. I think a lot of people go to Hong Kong first, and then we're going to go to China if we're going based on that. If the Hong Kong people say don't go, then that's good advice. I'm going back home. And that, I think Hong Kong is the gateway still for hundreds of foreigners to build up, will continue to make Hong Kong a very viable place to go to do business in China.
I think the point surely is that things have changed, but you seem to be saying not really.
Everything changes. Every time there's a war, things change. Stock markets crash. Everything changes. Life changes all the time. I've been in Hong Kong for 58 years. I love it.
But what do you think of Stephen Roach's pronouncement, the Morgan Stanley guy who said Hong Kong is over? He used to be a big booster of business with China when he was living in Hong Kong.
If he said Hong Kong is over, I remember in 1973, everybody was running for the airport because the market had collapsed, everything was going wrong. And from having been very high, 71, 72, just got going, 73 or whenever it was, 74, the collapse started, Hong Kong's finished. They've said it several times. I disagree with him. I think Hong Kong's beginning, albeit in a new pair of trousers, jacket.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Do you want to invest in a new media for Hong Kong?
And a new leader.
Media.
A new
New media for Hong
media.
Kong.
Media. Anyway, the answer is I have no interest in investing in the media. No. But today, I don't think I have much interest. I invested in a movie about myself.
I hear Green Bean is a good investment. That's what I'd heard.